Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, to our monthly Shariah webinar series, our 7th series for 2025. And my name is Aizuddin, and it's a pleasure to be your MC as always. And for your information, if you're new to our webinar series, this webinar series is a monthly one revolving around pertinent issues, discussing about pertinent issues revolving around the Sharia and Islamic banking and Islamic finance. And this special webinar series is brought to you by Rakyat, INCEIF University, the International Islamic University of Malaysia, and Derasat for Research and Consulting in Islamic Banking. Now, today's topic, ladies and gentlemen, is quite an interesting one, which is the role of Sharia in rehumanizing Islamic finance. And our speaker today is Prof. Dr. Azman Muhammad Noor. He is the professor of the Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance at IIUM, and he is also sits in the Sharia Committee of Bank Rakyat, or formally, if I'm correct. So anyway, without any further ado, I will pass the floor on to Prof. Azman. But sorry, before I forget, we do have as always, if you have any questions, do submit them in the Q&A window below, and then we will address those questions during the Q&A session later on. We will try our best to have all the questions answered within the allotted time, inshallah, as well as our panelists who will be joining our session today. So without any further ado, Prof. Dr. Azman, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamu warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. First of all, I'd like to thank our MC, Brother Azzuddin, for the introduction, and also for giving me this opportunity to share with you my perspective on the topic. Can you see my slide? Can you see my slide?
Can you share it again, Prof? Disabled tadi.
Okay. The topic given is on the role of Sharia in rehumanizing Islamic finance. Okay, to begin with, I think we all familiar that Islamic finance has been there in the market more than 40 years, and I think there are some issues and concerns raised in the market that how far we or Islamic finance has served the humanity. So there has been a question, a reason. How far Islamic finance serve the humanity, especially when it comes to the Muslims' needs, how far it cater the Muslims' needs. So this question has been going on for some time, some period of times, but still, from time to time, I think this is only for for a check and balance for our muhasabah. That how far Islamic finance has served humanity, and how far it serve the need of human beings, in other words. And I think the topic today is, I think most of us are familiar with the issue, and I would like to, from the very beginning, I would like to welcome the comments and also feedback from scholars who are with us on the line. All right. When we talk about the humanizing, okay, introduction, rehumanizing finance, okay. Islamic finance is a system based on Sharia principles promoting ethical and just financial service. But there is another aspect which is related to the humanization. So rehumanization here refers to the context of shifting focus, okay, to more humanly or to serve the human needs, and not only focusing on profits. So it's supposed to serve humanity as a whole, Muslims, regardless of Muslims or non-Muslims. And I think one of the aspects, of course, when we talk about Islamic finance, it's of course fairness and also justice. In the prohibition of riba itself is actually the justice to the contracting parties and also to the community. Humanization defined. There has been a lot of discussions about humanization, and even if you notice nowadays people talk so much about AI, artificial intelligence, and they try to mimic how to become more human. They try to. There has been a lot of presentations, a lot of slides, a lot of talks about how to humanize AI. So people try to actually serve the need and the various aspects of human beings, which are actually we can regard it to be something which is so special and something which is so unique. And we are living human being. We are not only, live as a subject, but we also have a spiritual part. We have emotional parts, and this AI, artificial intelligence, is trying, to fit in, the needs and also the suitability of the human beings. And the interesting part is they try to do their best, and sometimes they ask us, "Are you humans?" For example, when we do our transactions. But by mentioning that, what I want to highlight here is when we talk about the process of something more human or relatable or empathic, often by incorporating human values, emotions, and characteristics into the systems, services, product, and even ideas. So humanization means making something more human-centered, more understanding, kind, accessible, or emotional intelligence. It often implies shifting from cold, mechanical, or impersonal, approaches to those that prioritize people's needs and dignity. And the opposite of humanization is treating people as objects, statistics, or machines, seen in totalitarian regimes, unethical medical practices, rigid bureaucracies, and so on and so forth. Okay, from Islamic perspective, when we talk about human being is regarded to be the best creature of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. So we are the best creatures of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Compared to other creation of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, compared to other creatures, we are the best. So we are gifted, we are gifted with akal, with the wisdom, with the ability to think, to comprehend, to analyze, and also to make decision. And at the same time, you are entrusted by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ. Insan, we actually are responsible to deliver the responsibility, to be the vicegerent of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala on the earth. And at the same time, we are accountable and for what we are doing. We are responsible and accountable for what we are doing, not only in this world, but also in the hereafter. So we are so special. Human beings are so special. And when we talk about human being, with this specialty, we have to relate. The topic that we are talking about today is how to rehumanize. Why it matters? Islamic finance, if humanized, becomes a transformative tool, not just an alternative to conventional finance, which I think we are familiar with the reason why riba is haram, because of the injustice to the contracting parties. And actually one of the main issue is the time value of money. The more you defer, the more you have to pay. Endless punishment on the debtors. I mean, those who have debt, they have to pay more. The more they defer, the more they have to pay. And we observe this, we notice this, how are the developing countries, okay, or less developed countries, they are borrowing monies from other developed countries, and then they become indebted, and then they, to the extent then they lose their sovereign, sovereign entity or sovereign funds, everything has become encumbered or charged to other party, to the extent that they cannot make their own decision when we talk about political will, when we talk about independency, because of their heavy indebted, and because one of the main reason is because of the interest-bearing loan. And this is one aspect which is very visible in the current economic system, current financial system, the conventional one. But one of the, definitely we've been talking so much, and we heard so much about how important is Islamic finance to replace the conventional one in order to provide alternative to that unjust financial system and unjust economic system. One of the aspect is definitely when we talk about riba and whatever related to riba, and also the other elements of the prohibitions like gharar, uncertainty, and so on and so forth. But the system that promotes equity, okay, compassion, which has the elements of ethical value, empathy to other fellow human beings, spiritual values, sustainability, okay, and Shariah environment, companies environment ecosystem. This is what we are expecting from the topic, or from rehumanization of the Islamic finance. Okay, we want to see more equity, more fairness, more compassion, more spiritual values, okay, more sustainability. Because when we talk about spiritual values, it's not only about the contract itself, but also about those who are performing the contracts, those who are offering the products. We are supposed to be seen, okay, the practitioners, the players in the market, when we promote Islamic banking product, they could be seen to be, the role models, or, we can relate this to the da'wah activities. As we all know that in the past that Muslim traders who came from the Middle East, from Arabia, from Persian Gulf area, and also from India, or the traders, Muslim traders, they didn't only come here to do business, but they also brought with them their religion or the da'wah, and through their physical performance and through their ethics, their moral values, people have high expectation, or people regard them or learn good values from them, because this is supposed to be what is supposed to be. So inshallah, in the following slide, we'll look at those etiquettes, okay, those characteristics, okay, the positive characteristic that we have to improve. When we talk about humanization, we are the agents, okay, the players in the market, okay, not only the Shariah committee, or not only the Shariah department, Shariah management, but also all the departments, all the stakeholders, and all the players in the market should they relate themselves with this good behavior and good ethical value. Okay, this goes.
Prof, sorry to cut you off. Can you make your presentation full screen?
Yeah, sorry. Can you see?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, this goes ensure finance serve human development and human needs. So we are human related. Okay. Why? There is a question now. Why does it matter? Okay. Why does it matter? Sorry. Okay, contemporary Islamic finance face critical challenge that can obscure its ethical. I cannot see the whole screen. the ethical foundations. Okay, number one is one of the issues is over legalization, excessive focus on legalistic interpretations rather than the spirit of Sharia. Yes, sometimes we do agree that sometimes the forms, we focus so much on the forms, we sometimes don't take into account, for example, the humanity aspect. For example, when it comes to فَنِظَرَةٌ إِلَى مَيْسَرَةٍ, the Holy Quran mentions وَإِنْ كَانَ ذُو عُسْرَةٍ فَنِظَرَةٌ إِلَى مَيْسَرَةٍ. For example, when the debtor cannot afford to pay, for example, you should give them some period of time, cooling off period or some period of time, so that they can till they can afford to repay the indebtedness, for example. But sometimes we take actions, without looking or without taking into account the circumstantial situations, uh, the situations which make the person cannot afford to pay. But I think some of the banks, for example, they do take into account when the customers come forward, when they inform the bank about their situations. So they give them some considerations. But some others, they will not, give them any consideration in the event they fail or in the event of default. For whatever reasons, they are taking actions. And the same with when we talk about Ar-Rahnu, for example, when the period for financing has come to the end, the legal action is taken. Some of the players, they take into account, they give a consideration, the priority, for example, to the owner of the jewelry, for example, to get back the jewelry by making full payment of the indebtedness, for example. But sometimes some of the players, there has been a complaint in the market, they just sell it without giving a notification or reminder to the customer, for example. So this aspect, for example, is the human related aspect which we have to take into account. Okay, the other concerns is about the product mimicry, replicating conventional product without fully embedding Islamic ethical values. Okay, this is also another challenge. The environment, are definitely we are bound. Okay, we have to adhere to the existing rules and regulations. Like, for example, when it comes to so far we don't have when it comes to hire purchase, for example, we only have a existing hire purchase act. We don't have Islamic hire purchase act, for example, in the market. And we don't have when it comes to Ar-Rahnu, for example, we don't have Ar-Rahnu act so far. So there are things which definitely we have to improve from time to time, in order to make to make sure they are Sharia compliance, and also in order to take into account the elements of humanity. Okay, next is about the neglecting of maqasid, overlooking the higher objective of Sharia in financial transaction. Sometimes there has been so much talk about maqasid, so many people talking about maqasid, but as some of the scholars say, kathura qailuha wa qalla fahimuha. Many people talking about maqasid, but they don't really understand the maqasid. Kathura qailuha wa qalla fahimuha. Very few who understands the maqasid. To make it simple, by adhering to the requirements of the Sharia in the transactions, we actually are realizing the maqasid of Sharia. There are terms and conditions, shurut wal ahkam, terms and conditions with that we have to fulfill in concluding a contract, for example. When it comes to ijara contract, there are terms and conditions. When we do mudarabah, there are terms and conditions of mudarabah. The features of mudarabah are different from the features of, for example, loan, for example, qarb. The features of musharakah is different from the features of murabaha. So sometimes people pay so much attention on the maqasid from the economic perspective, but they forget about every contract has its own features, its own muqtada, and its own purposes, that need to be served. And I think recently we have an issue of over relying on the tawarruk transactions. And then there are suggestions that we have to switch to musyarakah or we find other instruments. Nothing wrong with that, but to some extent, sometimes when we talk about this issue, we want to see what is actually the directions or what is needed, what is actually do you? I mean, at the end of the day, it is debt financing, and then we try to whether we want to switch it to equity financing. But when we talk about equities financing, does it reflect the real equity financing? Because the problem is sometimes, doesn't reflect equity financing. When we talk about masyarakat, at the end of the day, masyarakat mutanakisah also has the same impacts, the same ending, the same, effects, where the customer becomes indebted. The same with ijarah, the same with musyarakah. I mean, ijarah, for example, the customer is not supposed to be indebted from the very beginning, but the whole arrangement makes him indebted by, signing, the undertaking, for example, to purchase even in the future. So it becomes, so there are debates and on these issues, but I don't want to go into details. But what I want to highlight here is by following the requirements or adhering to the requirements of each contract, for example, we can realize the maqasid of Sharia. We can realize the maqasid of Sharia. Okay, another issue was the lack of a social impact, insufficient contribution to the real economic development and societal well-being. This has also been discussed a lot when we do tawarruk, for example, whether it involves the real economic activities. So some of the scholars says in the Middle East, they say even the conventional loan, for example, it does give the impact, to the economic development. The same. I mean, when we talk about tawarruk, because the purpose is to give facility. The purpose is to provide financing, and then to raise the fund. I mean, the person needs a fund. Then we give him financing, and he can serve his need. If he wants to do a business, he can do business with that money. And if he wants to buy, for example, a house or property, he can do with that money. So the only difference is the means, the mechanisms. In the conventional borrowing, there is interest-bearing loan, but when it comes to Islamic financing, you use other contract. So we cannot deny that there is indirect real economic, activities behind the tawarruk, for example, financing. Even though you use tawarruk, but at the end of the day, there will be economic activities. The only thing is, for example, they don't do direct selling and buying. For example, what they do in the Middle East in the past, for example, they do, like Rajihi in Saudi, they used to sell cars to the customer with a markup price, and then the customer will sell it to the market in order to get liquidity. And I think in the Middle East now, in Dubai, for example, what they do for the personal financing, they are selling shares. And they're selling shares, sometimes the equities, the assets in the banks. And they can do that because the most of their financing activities, for example, for example, when it comes to sukuk issuance, they don't rely so much on the murabah or tawarruk sukuk, but they have a hybrid where there are elements of the assets, tangible assets in the portfolio, and then they have elements of ijarah. So it reflects when it reflects more than half of the whole asset, the tangible asset, not in the forms of debt, for example. So that it is tradable. It can be traded. But definitely there are innovations everywhere, anywhere. But still, there has been a questions about this, about how far it has brought the social impact. So it depends, okay, how you define it and how you want to improve it. Okay, current issues and desired outcome. Current issues, we have an emphasis on legalistic compliance only. Desired outcomes, holistic adherence to maqasid of Sharia and maqasid of every contract. And then primary focus on profit maximization. Desired outcome is balanced approach, profit with social responsibility, and limited tangible social and environmental impact. Desired income is tangible contributions to sustainable development. And the last one is the mimicry, to mimic the conventional financial product by having innovation and ethical grounded financial solutions. Importance of financial independency. This is related to the human beings. Okay, as human beings, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-yadul ulya khairun min yadis sufla, wabda biman ta'ul, wa khairu sadaqati an zahri ghina, wa man yasta'fif yu'fihi Allah, wa man yastaghni yughnihi Allah." The upper hand is better than the lower hand. I think when we talk about humanity, we talk about humanization, this is the crucial part. I think 20 years ago, when I was in the UK, one of the issue raised over there is about to get how people can free themselves from debts. In other words, to get a financial independence. It was one of the issue raised during, especially during the general election. The parties are campaigning, about how to liberate themselves, the public, the people, from their indebtedness. So one of the concern. So why financial indebtedness is very, very important. Okay, in Islam, being indebted, we are not encouraged to be indebted, for example. And at the same time, we heard about the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't want to perform a janazah prayer for the person who is indebted. And we have to understand that, okay, there are needs. If there is a need, I mean, you can borrow money. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he borrowed money, he bought foodstuff, and he charged his armor, because he didn't have cash, and he bought some household stuff. So that is typical. But in general, I mean, what I want to stress here, that if there is no need, for example, to borrow money, you shouldn't borrow money. You shouldn't be indebted. So being financial independent is very crucial. And in this hadith, the Prophet said, "Al-yadul ulya," the upper hand, the one who gives, is more khairun, better than the lower hand. Okay. In other words, when we talk about the lower hand, you are begging, you are asking from others, you are relying from others, and you don't work on your own. So you have to do your own effort. In another hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, hadith Jabir, "Ayu amal afdal?" You can find this hadith in Bulugh al-Maram. "Ayu amal afdal?" The Prophet said, "Amalu rajuli biyadihi." The work done by a person by himself. When I read the hadith, I thought that it is a freelance or something like that. But later on, I found that the meaning of the hadith is that not to beg, not to rely on others, not to ask from others. You have to earn on your own. So this is a dignity, human dignity. And we should start at the same time sadaqah, for example. وَابْدَأْ بِمَنْ تَعُولُ, begin with those you are responsible for. And the best charity is that which is given from sufficiency. I mean, you start with your what you are obliged, what you are obligated, for example, to provide the household sustenance, okay, the maintenance for the family members and those who are under, I mean, those who are your dependents. Okay, and if you have excess, you have extra, you can donate that money. So in other words, you have to do the priority, to give the priority to the family members first. Okay, then you get reward. Whatever you spend, you get reward for that. And then in the hadith, the Prophet said, وَمَنْ يَسْتَعْفِفْ يَعْفِهِ اللَّهُ. This is very crucial. Allah will make him, whoever refrains from asking, Allah will make him self-sufficient. The very problem now is that people are borrowing money unnecessarily, and then they enter into any scam, get rich quick scheme, for example, and then they become indebted, they become losers. Because of the greed. Sometimes people lose their proper wisdom and proper measurement when we talk about, profits, which sometimes people are giving them a promise, to give them a high return in the investment. So not only to use the cash that what in their hand, but also to borrow money, So this is an example of how we are not doing the financial management properly, or how sometimes people misuse, whatever entrusted or whatever they have, to the extent that, they don't only spend their money, but they borrow money. But sometimes also the most worst part is they ask others to borrow money. They ask their wife to borrow money. They ask their dependent to borrow money, their children to borrow money. This happen in the market, But what for? So because of the greed, they didn't want to invest somewhere, or they want to do this business, but there is no proper sustainability and viability study for that. All right. This is about this hadith is very crucial, that when we talk about this is what is important for humanity. A human being has his obligations. So he will not, in the day of judgment, la tazulu qadama abdin hatta yus'al. The Prophet said in the day of judgment, in the mahshar, he will not be moving. He cannot go anywhere until he asks about four things. One of them is about the money, where he get the money from and how he spend the money. So this is very crucial. All right. The next slide is, what does humanization mean in Islamic finance? The one I mentioned to you just now is about the human dignity and justice. We have to give attention to this. People don't need to borrow money, for example. And the interesting part, sometimes, the those who are holding a higher position, very good salary, for example, they do not borrow money, but they encourage others to borrow money. They do not, for example, take takaful, but they encourage others to take takaful, and then sometimes they make it compulsory. So this is what is happening. Sometimes the pricing, the price is too much. So this aspect have to, has to be taken into account, whether, if the community, the masses, for example, cannot afford to pay takaful, for example, they want to buy a house, but the takaful is too expensive. And then they cannot afford, then they will not do that. And you are losing the market as well. What I'm trying to say is it should be it should commensurate, the people's affordability. Sometimes, when the price is too high, and then people cannot afford that, then people definitely will decline it. The same with when we talk about takaful coverage or insurance coverage nowadays, people try to reduce the cost, because everything is expensive, and they try to cut costs. All right. Human dignity, and then financial products should serve people's real needs, try to avoid exploitation, and then promote fairness and ethics in the contracts. Number two, what does humanization mean in Islamic finance? Social responsibility. I raised this point, and then I hope the scholars, the mashayikh, to interject later on, or to give their feedback. The institutions must care for society's welfare, for not just shareholders' profits, and also to include, promoting zakat, wakaf, qard hasan, and financial inclusion. And CSR should not be limited to zakat and purification money only. Sometimes nowadays, when we talk about zakat, when we talk about wakaf, sometimes the problem is, when we talk about social finance, they try to, people limit it to zakat only. And then it happens that the financial institutions, they have a lot of money to pay zakat. And they try their best to make sure that the zakat is, the use of zakat is to be maximized. For the benefit of the poor and the needy, and then to get them into the financial inclusion. They have done their best, but from another perspective, it's not only, zakat money or the purification money, but they should have their own CSR, allocation in order to help the community, in order to help, the less, what you call it, fortunate community, for example, to also benefit from this Islamic financial service. So people can see it is visible, the efforts and also the contributions of Islamic when they do this CSR, when they do, the project which involve humanity, which of social needs, but it's not to be restricted to their zakat money only, but they have to have their own extra budget for that. All right. The other point when we talk about what humanizing means is about the empathy in financial dealings. Okay, by recognizing the challenge of the customers, especially vulnerable groups, debtors, low-income household. There are situations, people, for example, nowadays when their income is too low, like for example, 2,000 per month, it is almost impossible for them to make a saving. So we cannot, sometimes, those who have a good income, they say, how come, how come you don't have your saving? But definitely, for those low income, low salary, it is almost impossible. And I think there has been a data that how many percent of us, big, large, number of the community are relying on their monthly salary and they don't have savings. They don't have saving. If anything happen, they don't have saving. They cannot sustain. All right. Number 4 is about the maqasid of Sharia, humanize. Okay, these maqasid, these 5 actually proposals and maqasid actually are related to human beings, are related to the human needs. The life, the faith, the wealth, intellect, and lineage. All right. Example of humanized Islamic finance. We have, for example, microfinance by providing Qarda Hasan benevolent loans without excessive burdens. Not so much. We see not so much effort, but recently there has been some efforts. Some zakat centers. They try to collaborate with banks, for example, and banks when they want to pay zakat, they try to do a microfinance. And we have, for example, when it comes to takaful, emphasizing mutual ta'awun, not just risk coverage. This also has been a long debate on this. When we talk about musyarakah ta'awuniyah, sometimes people were complaining. Why should we bear, for example, in a portfolio, for example, why should we bear? The cross subsidy, for example, has become an issue. If you are the participant, why should bear the participants which are not sharing, the same peril, the same risks, why should, there has been an issue on that. There has been a discussion on that. But to make it humanized, I think what is more important in takaful is about the pricing. We can we can discuss later on about the pricing. All right, wakaf base. Because why? Because if people can afford, many will participate. Okay. All right. Wakaf-based funds. Okay. Now this is quite interesting. Okay, people. There has been in the market a number of wakaf unit trusts, for example, wakaf featured unit trust, where the return, okay, channeling the investment, okay, to socio-economic development, traveling, a part of the return. So far, it has been new in the market. I think we have more or less 5 unit trust funds serving. There has an element of wakaf, where the dividend, part of the dividend will be channeled to wakaf. But I think in the pipeline, a few players, they are interested. I think Rakyat is one of them. They are interested to launch sukuk with wakaf featured. This is also quite, I think, quite interesting. A new breakthrough and a new innovation where we can actually realize this, when we talk about wakaf, definitely it's human related. This is for the social purposes, I mean, to help the poor, the needy, and those who are in need. So this is quite interesting, where we can see, inshallah, if this is materialized, a portion of the dividend of the sukuk, for example, is to be channeled to wakaf. And, normally the sukuk involve big amount of money. Okay, and then if there is one in the market, and later on others will follow the same step. So this also will give us a good impact, and this will also serve humanity more, inshallah. Another example is about debt restructuring. As I think I mentioned just now about this aspect, has to be taken into consideration, where people cannot afford to pay. They should be given ample time. Okay, product design. Okay, another example is where the product is designed, okay, for people, not just compliance checklist, but also it suits, okay, the need and also the affordability of the people. Okay, the next is about the foundational role of Shariah. I think we are familiar with this. I don't want to go into the details about justice, about sharing, about social welfare, about ethics, about the prohibitions of riba, and also prohibition of maisir, and also ethical investment. I want to go to the Shariah path to rehumanize. Okay, Shariah path to rehumanize finance. By integrating Shariah principle, Islamic finance can transcend, okay, more compliance. Not only compliance, but also actively fostering a more equitable and ethical economic system by promoting risk-sharing mechanism like mudarabah and musyarakah, and then also through ethical investment, prohibiting speculation and investing only in Sharia compliant sectors, and also try to avoid unethical investment, and manufacturing weapons, and so on and so forth. All right, community focus, okay, by prioritizing broader societal benefit over individualistic profit maximization, and also about social safety nets, utilizing zakat and wakaf for poverty alleviation and also community development. Okay, strategies for rehumanization, a roadmap to embed humanity deeper into the fabric of Islamic finance through reinforce of maqasid. And as I said to you just now, it's not only the maqasid in general, but also for each and every contract. Once we follow the terms and conditions, shurut or ahkam for every contract, we can serve the humanity better, the justice for the contracting parties, and also the well-being, and also will provide win-win situation to the contracting parties. Okay, and improving spirituality. This one is very important part. Okay, strengthening governance and to revive social finance, improving spirituality. The set part. Okay, so how to do that? The religiosity aspect by removing the unethical values and improving the Sharia positive values. So it's very sad, if someone happen to be working with Islamic Bank or Takaful, but they don't attend Jumaat prayer, for example. It's very sad if he doesn't perform 5 daily prayers, for example. It's very sad. I mean, because he's supposed to be the role model. Because I still remember, I mean, we had a chance to listen to the story of the pioneers in Islamic banking, like Pak Mus, for example. Pak Mustafa, one of the, pioneers in Islamic bank. He used to work with Islamic bank before, and he said they did the tahajjud, almost every day, because those days it was the only bank, and there were a lot of challenges, and it's not that easy. How to maintain the status of being, offering, being Sharia institutions, offering Islamic Sharia compliance product. People are looking at you yourself as well, your behavior, the conduct, and all the aspect of, the daily activities, and also the banking activities. So the spiritual part, I think I want to stress on this by the effort that we have to do. For example, we try to remove, ourselves from the unethical values, okay, the vices of human hearts. The Sufis perspective, the Zuhud perspective is about the vices of human hearts. For example, the pride, the arrogance, kibr, thinking oneself superior to others. And this is the root cause for the Iblis fall. And then Riya, doing things, for example, to be seen, to be praised by others, not sincere. And then we have to eliminate, and we have to remove ourselves, cleanse ourselves from envy, resenting others for their blessings, greed, excessive desire for wealth, power, and material things. People are blind, when they are greedy, they are blind. They do whatever, they don't think wisely, and then they do whatever, means they can do. At the end of the day, they will regret for what they do. Love of the world, hubbu dunya, too much, attachment to the worldly pleasures over the hereafter. We have to avoid this. And then following shahwat, following base desires, and sensual appetites, and also ghadab, become angry, uncontrolled emotions that leads to injustice and harm. This is the human, the human factor, that we have to improve ourselves from time to time. Try to, try to cleanse ourselves, avoid ourselves from this, al-hiqd, hatred, holding grudges and ill will against others. And then laziness, physical lazy, and also heedlessness, ghaflah, never think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the command, the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the problem, I think now is one of the main problem is the laziness. People are so lazy to improve themselves. We can improve our knowledge from time to time. The challenge in the market now is, I think, sometimes we have the trouble. People spend so much time. Recently, I heard from Dr. Yasser Qadi in the USA, there was a research. There was a study that people are spending 5 hours and a half of their time, in front of the gadget, in front of their phone, their iPhone, iPad, TVs, or more than 5 hours a day, not a week, a day. So imagine people can spend their time for unnecessary things, for entertainments, for unnecessary things. Why don't they spend the time for something which can improve themselves in terms of knowledge, for example, in terms of skill, for example? So the sad thing is when we talk about, even when we talk about the Shariah, the Shariah department, the Shariah fraternity, sometimes people do not want to strengthen the knowledge in Sharia. They don't want to improve. They don't want to read. Actually, learning is actually a continuous effort, continuous process. It's not, doesn't stop. You say, I already did this in my degree study. I already did this when I was at university. No, you have to improve it from time to time. And nowadays, it is a borderless world. It's very interesting. I met a few brothers. They've been working here, and then they go abroad. They go to Dubai. They go to overseas, for example. And then there are always enhancement, improvement in the knowledge. This is very good. They say, I want to learn something new, other mazhab, and want to deepen my knowledge in textual, nusus, fiqhiyah, this is very good. But not many are interested. Not many have passion, for example, and they spend their time unnecessarily for something else. So this is also related to the laziness, to the vices of the heart, the bad behavior. And then I think we have to improve ourselves. We have to remove, that behavior. We have to be, you should have passion, and you should spend time definitely to improve your knowledge. The next is about the suspicion, su'uzan, about others, and also hypocrisy, which is pretending faith while concealing disbelief and corruption. Okay, some recommended good characters. Some mentioned this. This is the secrets of Abdurrahman bin Auf, one of the successful businessman, one of the rich companion of the Prophet ﷺ, and he's one of the Ashara Mubashirin bil Jannah, one of the 10 who were given the promise that they get a guarantee to go to paradise. Number one is about the main concern, is about getting halal earnings, and also having a good diligence, due diligence, good diligence in everything. make sure that, you have to be particular in everything, okay? What you get, and what comes into your pocket, what is your revenue, and how you're going to spend it. Make sure they are halal, and then, for example, they are not against the Sharia. And then what also he did was about the partnership. Some of his business venture, he did have a relationship. And then one of the aspect that he did was paying off debts and giving interest-free loans. So this is also, one of the things which is related to humanity is to write off. Sometimes people cannot afford. Some banks, they do that, to the corporate customers. But I think they have to do that to their individual customers as well. People cannot afford, they can write it off, or they can pay it off on behalf of the customers. This is the good things, the human aspect of the finance, which we should explore more. Okay, Qarbu Hassan, free loan is Qarbu Hassan. Okay, and then about the charity multiples wealth, he always give in charity. And then it's stated that one day Abdurrahman bin Auf, when he distributed his money to the people of Medina, nobody asked, everybody is happy because they knew that Abdurrahman bin Auf knows about halal and haram. So they have no doubt in whatever he brought or whatever he distributed to the fellows in Medina. Okay, the other thing is about humility. This is also good deed. Okay, he didn't show off. And the wealth he used the wealth, for example, to support the military campaign of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and many other events where there was a need to get the financial support, and also gratitude, shukur, and also self-accountability. So these are the good sectors that we have to, the good characteristic that we have to implant in ourselves. The last slide will be humanization. I think I'd like to end with this photo. This is the Hagia Sophia Mosque, where it was once a church, and it was built by Constantine and in Istanbul, and then later on it collapsed, and then Justinian built it again in the 6th century, 532 if I'm not mistaken. And then after a millennia, after 10th century, it was converted into masjid by Muhammad al-Fatih, and Muhammad al-Fatih conquered Istanbul, Constantinople on Tuesday, and they performed private prayer, Jummah prayer in that Hagia Sophia. And then the interesting part, which I want to mention here, is that Mimar Sinan, the great architect, the renowned architect of Ottoman, was assigned to convert this church into masjid. So you see the minarets, and you see the Qibla, and you see it looks like a masjid, but was once a church. And he removed, the photos, the pictures, the cross, those who are not, prohibited things which are against the Sharia teaching, the Islamic teaching. And then he made the Qibla direction, and he made the pulpit, and also the Muazzin place, and then he put the Arabic calligraphy, and then it becomes a masjid. At the same time, what is not seen is about the preservation of the old structure, where he put the buttress, between, the domes, the big domes, the foundations. Until today, it can be seen. This is very impressive, very impressive work of Mimar Sinan. I mean, in general, doesn't mean Islam doesn't mean to demolish. It's not against humanity, but when it comes to, Islam can be adopted, and many things can be Islamized, not by throwing them at once. You can make use, or you just remove those elements which are not against Sharia, and then you put some extra added values which make them Islamic. So this is very impressive. If we have time, inshallah, some other time we discuss in details about this conversion, but I don't want to go into details. But I just want to share with you the point that how the contribution made by Masinan uh, in maintaining, you know, the structure, so that we can see it. It was done, year 1553, something like that. It was the conquest until today, year now 2020. So the monument, you know, the structure is still there because of the efforts, you know, done by Mimar Sinan. They preserve it, and then some of the remaining Roman Byzantine mosaic was still there. But at the same time, it has been declared a wakaf, and it also declared a mosque, and how the process of the conversion was done by removing. So the same thing here when we talk about humanization, we have to remove the vices, you know, the bad characteristic we mentioned just now, and we try to replace them, improve them by having, you know, those characteristic, those etiquettes which are encouraged in Islam. Okay, with that, I come to the end of my presentation. So I would like to say a path forward. Rehumanizing Islamic finance is not merely a theoretical exercise. It is a practical imperative for building a more just and equitable global economic system. Islamic finance is not just compliance, it's compassion and also justice in action. It's time to recenter ethic, humanity values in Islamic finance, fostering through human prosperity. With that, jazakumullah khairan kathiran. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Prof. Azman, for that insightful and presentation and a beautiful ending on the comparison that we have on the topic of rehumanizing Islamic finance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the Q&A session. First, I would like to open the floor for our panelists. I'll give a few moments for anyone of our panelists who would like to address any questions for Prof. Azman. And after that, if we will get to the questions from our participants. There's already 3 here. So our dear panelists, if you have any questions or comments, please just unmute yourself and you can put out your question or comments. Thank you. Okay, if there are no comments, in the interest of time, I will get straight to the question there. So Prof, one of our participants asked, can you please elaborate on how we might define practicality in relation to undue influence and conflict of interest during the Shariah committee meeting? It seems challenging to establish clear metrics to determine if such issues arose during our discussions. Your insights will be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think this is related to the independency of the Shariah committee. So very good questions. This is what is expected, okay, by the regulator and by all, that the Shariah committee are actually independent in giving Shariah opinion. So what matters to us is whether, I mean, if the question raised, for example, for the approval for a product, for example, it's very important that they have a thorough understanding about the concept, number one, the concept, and also the terms and the conditions. The Shariah committee have to be responsible for that, regardless of, I mean, who is proposing, you know, the product. This is the challenge. You know, sometimes when they they disapprove or they raise some concerns, sometimes, you know, the management are not happy, you know, and they say why the Sharia is so strict. But at the end of the day, the Sharia committee, they are responsible, you know, for whatever their decision, you know. Even the regulator will definitely will call them, you know, and then they have to defend their decision. So what is important is they must have an independent opinion. And sometimes, people just want to try, they for example, they say this might not be approved, but they try whether they should approve it or not. So
Without understanding fully yet.
yeah.
Just try.
And then they try, sometimes, there is no proper and ample time to deliberate the issue.
Right.
And not everything is put on the table, not everything is disclosed. And we are human beings. When there are too many agendas, 10
Mm.
agendas in a meeting, and then nobody highlights, the sometimes, the concerns, the related concerns, and then the Sharia committee are not aware on that, and sometimes they are not prepared on that. So the ample time is important. I mean, for them to read, the documents, and also to prior to the meeting to have a pre-council, for example, and to have deliberations, so that when they make a decision, they have a clear idea, because the issue is, as they said, that Suratul Mas'alah, juzu, tasawwur mas'alah, juzu min al-hukm, to have a clear picture of the issue is part of the decision.
Mhm.
So the question here is very crucial. And if the Sharia committee has, for example, conflict of interest, the practice is they have to declare that. For example, he happened to be the Sharia committee at another institution, and the product, for example, is from another institution, Takaful, for example, and then we cannot leverage on his position as, Sharia committee at that Takaful, and then when we table to the bank, for example, the Sharia committee of the bank has to approve. So he has to declare his conflict of interest, and then let others decide, for example. So this is
Mm.
very, very important to avoid, the conflict of interest. And in general, I think the Sharia committee members, they don't have those conflict of interest so much, because not many of them are having interest in the business transaction. They don't have shares in the company, for example, vendors in supplying the IT services or other services. Most of them, they don't have interest, but when related to any conflict interest, they have to declare that. And what is important is they have to be independent, not under influence of the CEO, not under influence of the management, but a real, Sharia responsibility and accountability. Because what matters is the decision. In fatwa itself, in order to give a fatwa, a Sharia opinion, he must have a clear picture, because he is responsible, and he is accountable for the decision.
Right.
The Sharia committee, for example, can put on hold, for example, if they need to have more info, then they don't need to rush to make decision. They have to say, we need more clarification on this and that.
Mm.
We need legal opinion, for example, legal department. So this is the use of the legal department. We need to use, for example, we need to have the risk department decision on this, so that this can give a clear, understanding, a clear picture of the issue raised, or for whatever, proposal to get the approval from the Sharia committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question from Sadman Khan Nabil. Thank you for a wonderful session, Prof. So while designing products and propositions in Islamic banking products, we will have to keep a sharp eye on ethical standards and ensure we don't. Oh, my apologies. This is more of a comment than a question. Thank you, Mr. Sadman. Okay, the next question is to the point of over legalization under challenges. Financing is provided after thorough credit checks to people who are believed to have potential to make repayments. So when the customers get default, is it required by the Sharia for banks to ease the penalties or repercussions, or how should they go on about legal actions toward the defaulters? How can Islamic banks tackle this humanely? It's a good question.
The interesting part, I think yesterday or a few days back, I saw the report in the UAE. Now they don't allow, for example, late payment charges. This is very interesting. There has been a long debate. whether we can impose late payment charges on the basis of gharamah. And of course, based on the Bernegara regulation guidelines, we can impose on gharamah, but we cannot recognize income except only the actually incurred cost only. We cannot take the penalty as income. We have to channel to the charity. But back to the questions here. Okay, the questions here, for example, he said that how should they go on about legal action towards defaulters? How can Islamic Bank tackle this humanly? Yes, I think we have a proper process. Bernegara also has provided, the guideline for that. We have a proper process. Before they take action, they send a reminder to the customers. But what I mentioned just now is there are still, some, for example, the customers, for example, who, the family who lost their breadwinner, their father, for example, and the housing, the financing for the house, for example, is made by his father, for example, and there was no takaful coverage. So in this case, for example, the practice is some of the banks they take for into consideration the situations, the circumstances. The bank can definitely take the process, the due process, the normal process. But there were times, there were situations, for example, by taking into account certain considerations, they might have, a more human treatment. Some exemptions of the general rules or general practice. So they give them some more times, for example. And sometimes when they have zakat, for example, can you use zakat? So they will table this in the Shariah committee, for example, to get the opinion, for example. So this is what I mean. Not all situations. Not all people, for example, when it comes to default, they are intentional to default. There are situations it was done unintentionally, and then because of certain circumstances, and these certain circumstances have to be taken into account.
So there are checks and balances already in place before
Yeah,
you actually proceed legal action.
a leeway. Yeah, there is a even in takaful, for example, they have these elements, what they call it. The board of directors sometimes they also make the payment. I can't remember the term, the basis. Even though sometimes doesn't meet the requirement, but sometimes they give them certain amount of money. I can't remember the term, but the shareholders have the prerogative to decide. To give a certain to make a certain payment, okay, to the policy holders, for example, or the beneficiary of the policy, by taking into account certain conditions and circumstances.
Excellent, thank you. Next question is, what is the importance of rehumanizing Islamic finance in a global perspective, particularly in the ASEAN region?
What is the question again?
What is the importance of rehumanizing Islamic finance on a global perspective, particularly in the ASEAN region?
Yeah, I think the topic is not only for Malaysian. In general, to make sure that we are in line, okay, with the Sharia requirement. And one of the concern of Sharia is about the humanity, about human being. So that's why when we talk about taklif or mukallaf, being religiously obligated, for example, Islam take into account the age, the human ability to understand, to comprehend, until he reached the age of the majority, for example, and then the action, the transaction to be taken into account is regarded valid. If he's the underage, for example, the transaction is not valid, for example, and also a person who is under duress, who is senile, for example, lose his ability, his taklif. So this is a human consideration. So just to mention, that aspect, but there are other aspects. Definitely, from time to time, we have to take into account we have to always remind ourselves that, okay, Islamic finance cannot be without taking into account the human, the human factor and humanization.
And our last question, it's quite a long one, but okay. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Thank you for the insightful presentation. My question is, I recently read a study by Suprayogi in 2017 that looked at musyarakah mutanaqisah financing in Islamic banks. The paper pointed out that when using the substance over form principle, financial reports may only show the cash financing without reflecting the joint ownership aspect of the contract. This could make it seem like the bank is not following Sharia principle. As a result, the financial report may appear inconsistent with the actual Sharia contract and may even contradict the Sharia Supervisory Board's findings, which confirm the contract as compliant. In light of this, how should we approach the use of the substance over form principle? Should we try to balance it more with legal form to ensure both Sharia compliance, clear, accurate financial reporting?
Thank
I
you
hope
very
you
much.
understand. It's quite long.
Yeah, before I respond to this question, I'm actually very overwhelmed and very happy with the good participation. About the numbers are not big, but mashallah, very good questions.
Yes,
So
agreed.
yeah, this is one of the constants here. Sometimes people are interested, for example, to introduce new product. But I think I mentioned in my presentation, sometimes if when we talk about the substance of musyarakah cannot be realized, you just name it musyarakah, then we have a trouble. So yeah, when we mention musyarakah, it has to be a musyarakah. There must be a contribution, for example, of the principle of the capital, okay, from the bank as well. And then, for example, the ownership, if it is already taken by the customer, for example, it's supposed to be started from the very inception, the very beginning. So, and the same thing about the profit sharing ratio. Masyarakat must be clear on the profit sharing ratio. And then who is receiving the payments, when it comes to, the payments, the monthly, installments by the customer. Is it against the financing or against, is it regarded as ijara, for example, must be clear. But in general, musyarakah mutanakisah, based on my experience, there were a number of models. One of the models is, for example, at the beginning you do musyarakah and then later on you do murabaha. So that one is very easy, very simple. I mean, it's easy to understand, and accounting perspective is also doable. It becomes like murabaha. But if you want to have musyarakah and then mutanakisah, through ijara and acquisition of the asset of the bank, for example, or the equity of the bank, for example, that is quite tricky. I mean, to reflect in the accounting perspective, because I asked the accountants, they say they cannot differentiate. So, and when we look at the legal documents, sometimes we have a clause. This partnership doesn't establish, doesn't amount to shirkah, doesn't, this arrangement doesn't amount to partnership. So the clause itself is against, the substance. So we have a trouble. I mean, so if you want to do musyarakah, it must be a real musyarakah. And then definitely the legal counsel, the lawyers, they will they just like contractors. They just follow what do you want? What are the features that the bank or the product owner wants it to be? If you want to design it like this, they will follow you, because they definitely. I mean, they can do that. I mean, the lawyers can do that, can design the legal documentation as you like, as you wish. But from another perspective, you also have a risk department. Sometimes the head of the risk or the risk department will not allow you to launch the product or to have that features in the product. So that is another challenge. But we have to take this as a challenge, and then we have to improve from time to time. We have to innovate. Doesn't mean that we cannot do musyarakah, but I mean, we have to satisfy, first of all, the Sharia requirement. When we say musyarakah, it must be a real musyarakah. And then what can be compromised, that it can be discussed later on. Yeah, sometimes, for example, the registration is a small issue. The registration of the, the owner of the property, for example, you put the name of the customer, for example, and then you have a separate, paper, for example, legal documentation to prove that it has been ownership. That is another small issue, but there are many other more major issues of musyarakah that you have to satisfy. So yeah, I think we from time to time you have to explore this. You have to balance between the Sharia requirements and what must be preserved, in order to maintain it to be musyarakah. If you want to still use musyarakah as the means for the financing or to structure the product. Allah Alam.
Excellent. Jazakallah khair, and thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Azman, for that insightful presentation. And thank you once again to our attendees for those very good and really solid questions. Alhamdulillah. Perhaps one in the last 2 minutes, maybe one last final note from Dr. Azman about this topic.
Thank you very much. Again, I think it's from time to time we have to revise. They call it al-buslah qabla sa'a. Buslah, yani you must have the compass. You know the direction. So the same with us when we talk about Islamic finance, we must know the compass. We have to know the direction towards which direction. So if we want to go far and we want to sustain, then we have to from time to time we have to look, okay, whether the services, whether the product we introduce serve the human needs. Okay, if definitely, if we can provide fairness and justice to the customers, then it will last long and it will sustain long. So that is what we want. Okay, we want to make sure, okay, we serve humanity, and inshallah it will last long, and it will sustain, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum jami'an. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much once again, Prof. Azman, for our session today. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we have come to the end of the monthly Shariah webinar series brought to you by Rakyat, INCEIF University, IIUM, and Derasat for Research and Consulting in Islamic Banking. Once again, my name is Izzuddin. It's been a pleasure to be your MC as always. And do tune in for our next webinar series on the 21st of August, inshallah. And we will see you then. For those who asked the question about the recording, yes, we will have the recording of the session today uploaded on our social media channel. With that, thank you very much. I end my duty with wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.